Jai Shri Krishna to all viewers of the Sanatan Shakti. Today we have a very, very famous Dr. Ankit Shah. Most of the predictions are coming true. And he's working very hard on de-dollarization. And today is our subject going to be mainly on de-dollarization. And we talk about other subjects also, but mainly it is going to be de-dollarization. So, Dr. Ankit Shah, you have done lots of research and you are preparing well for everything. How do you conceive the idea of this de-dollarization? Where did you get the idea?
Yeah. So we have to understand that when dollar replaced pound as the new reserve currency, the format was that United States collect all the physical gold in the Second World War in exchange of war supplies from the European countries. So after collecting all the physical gold under the Bretton Woods Agreement, it imposed United States dollar as the new reserve currency, replacing the pound. And then the entire cycle started off what we call as the dollarization of the world, right? So first of all, there was something like a Cold War between USSR and the US, wherein the United States dollar was losing trust. So they tried to add words called "In God We Trust." So by adding that particular sentence on the currency, what they were trying to do is two aims. One was bringing back the trust to the US dollar, and second was targeting communism, because communism does not believe in religion. So by adding those words, "In God We Trust," they were trying to counter the communist USSR. After that, in the Vietnam War, because it stretched like anything, all the countries of the world lost trust in the dollar again. So the countries of the world said that, we want our gold back. Take your dollar back. We need gold back in exchange of the US dollar. Now, the economy of the country was so bad, President Nixon on 15th August 1971 decided to stop the gold convertibility and also the gold standard. Now, he particularly selected 15th August because a few weeks before 15th August 1971, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was declared as one of the most popular leaders in the world. Now, this did not go down well with the US administration. And then we all know from the classified information that was declassified that they used to hate the Indian Prime Minister and the government. So they selected 15th August. They stopped the gold convertibility. And from there, the concept of fiat money got birth. Fiat money means totally printed out of thin air, based out of nothing. All right. Now, since all the currencies of the world are hooked to the US dollar because of the Bretton Woods Agreement from the Second World War, as many times the United States prints the US dollar, for all those times, the inflation of that excess supply of dollar passes on to the rest of the world, because everybody is supposed to do their bilateral and multilateral transactions in dollar. And this is how, till date, the rest of the world is paying for the American lifestyle. Now, in 1973, Kissinger went to Saudi Arabia and they signed up an oil for security program, which meant that United States was supposed to give security in exchange of the OPEC countries selling all the crude oil in dollar. Now came the concept of petrodollar. With this petrodollar and the fiat dollar, the entire bubble of the rest of the 180 plus countries parking their savings in the United States dollar, because they, not that the countries of the world were trusting the dollar, they were trusting the endless printing capacity of the dollar. Now, this is one of the confusion among many experts, that everybody trusts the dollar. Nobody trusts the dollar. Nobody trusts the US economy. Nobody trusts the US military. Nobody trusts the US government. The trust was on the endless printing capacity of the dollar, because it was the reserve currency. All right. So entire world used to park their savings in the US dollar and the US Treasury, because it's an insurance that the United States Federal Reserve will print and at least give the repayment of what the investment is done. So this is how the entire bubble was created in the valuations of the all the Western assets. Particularly by late 90s, this entire inflation got settled into what we call as the dot-com. So the IT sector was actually born out of this reserve currency status of the dollar and the plowing back of the petrodollar and the fiat dollar. The entire bubble was now sitting in the IT sector. European Union, I mean, we all know that Saddam Hussein was the first one. And then we know that Gaddafi of Libya. Both of them tried de-dollarization and got killed. But the first serious attempt of de-dollarization was by the European Union. So they came up with this euro currency, and immediately United States, using the NATO powers, dragged the European Union into a conflict with Yugoslavia. And then the euro valuation came down by that. European Union realized this trick, and they said, now we are no more going to park our savings in the United States Treasury. Taking revenge of that, the United States brought China in the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and then made the China the manufacturing giant that it has become now. In return, China promised that they will deposit all their savings in the US Treasury and the capital market. So this is how the arrangement went on. Now, since this was the first ever de-dollarization, the entire bubble, which was parked in the dot-com, burst violently, and by October 2002, the IT sector lost about valuation of around 78% in the US market. So this was the first ever de-dollarization. And since IT sector was born, as I said, from this format, there is no way, because right now the current procedure of de-dollarization is the final one, which means that the IT sector is going to be massively impacted, right? So this is the entire story of how things went. By 2008 crisis, to bring the Americans out of the crisis, again United States started printing dollars, and this time the entire inflation of this new printing went on as food inflation in the Arab countries. And in 2011, we saw Arab Spring, and many governments of the Middle East collapsed. This was the first time that the Gulf realized that in order to survive the US dollar, this is a heavy cost that they paid, and they have lost almost about 50% of their crude oil wealth just to keep the US dollar going. So this is a massive impact which now the Gulf realized by 2012-13. Now, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, the first demonetization started. He first tried to bring a gold monetization scheme in India, 2015. So his idea must be that let's first accumulate the domestic gold, channelize that first. But that did not work that successfully, and then he started doing demonetization of the West. So Russia, India, and China jointly started collecting gold in the central bank reserves. Now, since United States was making a single country reserve currency, they needed to accumulate so much gold. But since BRICS plus countries are making a basket of reserve currency, which will have all the participants' currencies in the basket, they do not require so much gold. Only tiny amount of gold reserves in the central banks, and the dollar would be flipped out from the reserve currency status. So this is where we are heading towards. But coming to your point, I mean, where it started, it's the Prime Minister Modi who took the lead in demonetization and what we call as this de-dollarization. So first of all, in 2018, he offered China, because China is an export-oriented country. Until we have China on board, de-dollarization wasn't going to happen. But Xi Jinping just had the control of the Central Military Commission in 2018, which is why he was not ready back then for national currencies trade. But UAE, Iran, and Russia immediately agreed in 2018 for national currencies trade. So until the BRICS currency format comes up, the pilot transactions go successful. Until then, what I see is all the countries of the world who are intent on de-dollarization, some 30, 40 plus, they all have decided to transition to national currency trade. So anyways, de-dollarization is final, even if the BRICS currency does not get successful. So that's what it is.
Dr. Ankit Shah, tell me please, is it true that USA will take this very easily and they will let it happen and lose the control over the dollar and world currency as a reserve currency, dollar as a reserve currency? Do they let it happen?
So, I have been seeing all the investment biggies. I've been seeing the geopolitical biggies and even the psychologists who read body movements like me. But none of them, I mean, all of them are relying on US taking some action to stop de-dollarization. I'm the only one who is saying that US is on board on this decision. I believe the moment gold was taken as tier 1 in the Basel norms in 2019, that very day they decided to kill the US dollar. So this is what I look at it like. The way they exited from Afghanistan, this is another proof. As soon as they exited from Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia signed a defense cooperation with Russia. Now, this reversed the oil for security program of 1973, principally speaking. So all these were US decisions. Similarly, right now US is looking for, have given a bid for all stock takeover for the biggest gold mine in Australia. So you see all the moves point at United States decided decisive on killing the fiat dollar and going to the pegged world along with the BRICS nation later. This is what it looks like. Even the Ukraine conflict looks like a de-dollarization script because it damages the UK and the EU currencies and economies, which will be very helpful for the US dollar to keep some value later. So I believe United States is mostly on board on this decision. I mean, there could be some tiny faction which is resisting, but majority of the US deep state companies, I believe, they're aligned on this de-dollarization process.
For the benefit of our viewers and all Indian public, Doctor, how this de-dollarization will help Indian economy and Indian people?
Hmm. So we have to understand that in order to survive the US dollar, the sectors which were destroyed or artificially suppressed in valuations were manufacturing, farming, enterprising, food processing, logistics, defense, and precious metals, gold and silver. These all were artificially suppressed in valuations for the last 40, 50 years. So once de-dollarization happens, all these sectors are going to boom like anything, which means that Asia will no more require to do the kind of exports that Asia has been doing all these years in terms of quantity. So we also see a few days back Xi Jinping statement coming up to push the Chinese population to consume what they are making at home. So he's very clear that that the Western Costco and Walmart racks will be totally empty because even if Asia wants to export, I don't believe once the currencies are pegged, the exchange rate would be good enough for the West to buy anything from Asia. I don't think West will be able to afford anything. So this is where we
Yeah,
are heading, and this will also solve, as I say, de-dollarization is equal to de-radicalization and is also equal to de-missionarization and also equal to de-communism. So the Gulf realized they lost 50% of their crude oil wealth in keeping the US dollar going and wasting the money on radicalism in the entire Indian subcontinent and the Middle East. So now they want to diversify their economy, which is why they are looking at India. And they realized that they have seen the American style of de-radicalization, which is the bombers go from the top. They have seen the Russian style of military handling, and they've also seen the Chinese style of de-radicalization, where they steal the organs of the Uyghur Muslims. So I believe they selected India. The safer path they saw was yoga, Ayurveda, and mandirs. So that is where the Gulf is also moving towards. They want to de-radicalize their society and diversify their economy. Now, once de-dollarization kicks in and we jump to the pegged currency world, and gold is a fantastic absorber of inflationary pressures, there will have to be a fiscal discipline to be maintained, which is exactly why the leaders won't be able to declare socialist freebies at their free will. So it is also decommunism. In the entire funding for missionaries coming from euro and dollar, endless printing of the reserve currencies. I mean, euro has 20% and dollar is 59% reserve currency status. So because of that endless printing, the missionaries and the protest finance and the terror finance used to happen. All that will also be curbed down. So I believe, which is why I say de-dollarization is equal to de-radicalization is equal to de-communism equal to de-missionarization. So Modi ji is taking us to a world where a majority chunk of the problems of the world gets solved.
I really respect your views, Doctor, but do you think this Modi is becoming really powerful and Western world, specifically America and Europe, are they going to, or even the Xi Jinping, are they going to tolerate that or they will try to dethrone Modi by any hook or crook, subject to this George Soros statement and he's putting $1 billion to dethrone Modi?
We need to understand, as long as China is concerned, China has realized that after 4 decades of slogging for the world, what they earned was only $3 trillion, 40 years of work. And United States printed about $13 trillion in the last 3 years and distributed to Americans for free. So the dollar sucked them dry and they became aged before being rich. So Chinese have realized that they are no more in the mood of exporting anything, which is exactly why you saw Wang and Li Keqiang, both of them removed from the, I mean, in the National Congress, demoted in the last National Congress. By March next month, I believe the entire Politburo will be anti-exports in China. No more exports to the West. So the preference is going to be Gulf and other emerging economies. So China is on board as long as de-dollarization is concerned. Now, in terms of handling India, or China's relation with India, Xi Jinping went to an Arab summit. He went for 3 days to Riyadh, and he was trying to find out what amount of commitment he gets from the Gulf, because with de-dollarization is going to decouple from the West. So he needs some commitment from elsewhere. So he realized that he got only commitment of 30 billions, which is tiny. So the lesson that Xi Jinping learned from that Arab summit was, unless and until India is been in between this entire de-dollarization process, nobody is going to directly trade with him because of transparency reasons. Because the Chinese Communist Party or Vladimir Putin, these do not have the transparency credentials which is very much required if you are moving to a pegged world together with the entire bunch of nations. So I believe that, which is exactly why the new development bank is being established in the gift city. I believe that will become the mini World Bank kind of an institute. And it will handle all the nodal operations for the de-dollarization transactions. That's what my reading is. So that is what about it. Now, as long as United States is concerned, you need to understand that these deep state companies look at nations like portfolio for profits. So profit band ho jata hai, then they dump these nations, right? So all the previous world power, that includes the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the British, and now the United States. All these previous powers were ditched by these companies at the exact same point when the interest expense increased the defense expenditure. So that is the stage which United States economy has reached right now. So I am not surprised if Google and Microsoft heads are coming to India. They meet the prime minister, they go back, and they announce layoffs and also shut down their offices in the Silicon Valley. So I look at by 2030, you will have all these deep state companies settled in India.
Dr. Ankit Shah, I'm always baffled and surprised. These IT companies, most of the IT companies, bearing few, they don't have any real tangible asset. Like the best example is Airbnb or Uber. They have only app, but they are valued in billions of dollars. How come? And the companies like Adani's and Ambani's and Tata's and Birla's, they have a tangible asset like ports and infrastructure and blah blah what not factories there, and they are not valued that way. So can you throw some light onto this?
So we need to understand that the American setup was designed in a way where 180 nations are going to park their savings, which is exactly why you will find that all the Western assets have reserve currency bubble in the valuation. All these are inflated assets. So once de-dollarization kicks in, which I mean one part has already happened, which is from January 2022, none of the countries have parked their savings in the US Treasury, which is why you see all the inflation Americans themselves have to face, right? The Europeans themselves have to now face the inflation for whatever printing that they do, right? So one part of de-dollarization has already happened. The second part is chucking out the dollar from the bilateral transactions one by one, which is exactly why you see that Prime Minister Modi started declining all the multilateral trade pacts from 2016, saying जिसको भी ट्रेड करना है वो एक एक लाइन में आएंगे. We are going to sign individual free trade agreements, no multilateral trade pacts. Because in multilateral trade pacts, dollar is default. There are 10, 15, 20 nations, and dollar becomes a default reserve currency for whatever trade that is decided, which is why India withdrew from all the multilateral trade pacts. Specifically, you would have noticed one example of RCEP, where China, Japan, Australia all pressurized India, but India said no, we'll do individual free trade agreements only, because it is very easy to flip individual agreements to rupee or the new currency which is coming up, rather than waiting for consensus between 15, 20, 30 nations in a multilateral format. So Russia and China had no clue that it was India who was taking the lead of de-dollarization process. They absolutely had no clue.
I read somewhere, but you can bring some authentication to this. Indian rupees is now accepted in like some 20 countries now.
30 plus. So
30 plus.
Indian rupee, UPI, and the RuPay cards. So this is the first mover advantage India is going to have because of the starting the de-dollarization process, right? So as I said, Russia and China had no clue the background steps that we were taking. So obviously we are going to have a first mover advantage, besides the trust factor that we already have among the Committee of Nations, which is why you will see that none of the nations, BRICS plus nations, would even Russia and China would want India in between for handling all the de-dollarization transactions, because there will be a formula of pegged currency where we will require a kind of transparency. So that's where it is heading towards. Now, as long as targeting Adani is concerned, now one of the reason why this happened was the geopolitical reason of how the ports are very important in terms of the security of the sea and the trade lanes in the Indian Ocean. Besides that, um, the family-led businesses would always be targeted by the Western deep state, because they do not have the stability of the family institution. They have destroyed the family institution just for the sake of continuing with the fiat currency. So the state took the role of father, the state took the role of a brother, the state took the role of a husband by doing all the socialist freebies, the income security, the food stamps, the entitlement benefits, the Medicaid will take care of your aged parents. You can leave. So this all thing that has happened just to keep the fiat dollar going, they destroyed their family institution completely, which is why they envy all the companies or trade or the business entities that India has, which are family backed. So even if tomorrow the government or the RBI says, uh, please don't give loan to Adani, the entities will still give, because this is a civilizational wisdom that family backing is the assurance that the repayment will be done. There could be exceptions, but this is the civilizational wisdom of India. So nobody has told the financial institutions that you follow this preference for the family led companies. No, this is the civilizational wisdom of India, that the family's reputation would be at stake, which is exactly why your repayment would be done. If one brother is dim or not able to intellectually give output, the other brother will compensate for him. So this is the civilizational wisdom, which is why Adani was attacked. All the family-led businesses are going to be attacked. And as I've predicted, that NRI is also going to be attacked for the same reason, because NRI families have the stability of parents, which is why the kids can complete their education. Uh, they can have good career, which is why the financial institutions would be able to give loans only to the NRIs in a high interest regime, which is going to come forward after de-dollarization. So once these financial institutes give only loans to NRIs, that is exactly when the NRI diaspora will start facing attacks and organized crime in the West. That is
Doctor,
what my prediction is.
there is a video, is very viral, George Soros's video. He's going to put $1 billion to dethrone Modi and bring back somebody like Rahul Gandhi or UPA. Right. So, can you throw some light on that, please?
So the moment Qatar took a stake in Credit Suisse on 23rd Jan, I was very clear that the FPO is going to be attacked, because Qatar has always have maintained an anti-India stand, and Credit Suisse was the one who was playing this entire stuff. So the day the stake was taken, it was very clear that the Adani FPO would be attacked, and you saw how Credit Suisse gave a favorable rating, and after the FPO issue was done that day, they rated the bond to zero. So it was a complete mischief and a calculated attack with the budget and the FPO issue date. So and these kind of the biggies of the Western deep state are going to attack India's growth, because they fundamentally cannot accept that the erstwhile colony is going to take over everything. Once de-dollarization happens, you imagine the top rich list of the world. Most of them are going to be Asians and not the Western, right? So it makes sense to attack. And besides that, you also know this is not the first time Adani was attacked. Before that, he was delisted from the US stock exchange for taking a port project in Myanmar. Before that, he was harassed with the coal mines project in Australia. Before that, the communist elements were also channelized in Kerala for the Adani port, which was there in Kerala. So, via missionaries, that funding happened. So, they are not okay with the kind of development and speed India is going with. So, a big section of the Western deep state companies would not be comfortable to see the kind of dictates that come. I mean, if I'm just supposed to give you an example, one of the Google or Microsoft head, when he came to India, he was able to meet the prime minister, and the next guy sitting with him was the India head of the same company. So I think it was very clear direction to him that you're not going to come alone, right? So what I look at is by 2030, all these deep state companies are going to become tiny in valuations because of de-dollarization, and then they are going to shift and settle in India, and you will have eventually have a resident Indian operating from India as the global heads of these companies. This is where this entire thing is heading into. You saw General Electric, Raytheon, General Atomic, all these biggies, Airbus, Boeing, and the prime minister and the president of US, France, and UK had to actually tweet that India is giving employment to 44 states people of mind, and that to the ones who are not literate enough. So this kind of an official statement coming out, you see the kind of power that India has become. It's going to be a pain point for all the biggies who have been enjoying the colonial power for so many years. So that's where it is, and they are going to attack. And there are many elements available in India to channelize these attacks. Like you saw Mahua Mitra, Chidambaram, all of them activated at one go. The Wire, the Print, right? All those journalists who started writing articles. That Adani is heavily debt, highly leveraged, etc. So these attacks are going to continue until the 2024 elections. I do not see anything serious about it as yet, but if this is going to come down to something like a physical attack on any of our leaders, then that is something we need to be very much concerned about, because there is no other way you can dominate the Indian governance except changing the leader. And they have been successful in doing regime change operations in several countries, but the method they used of protest and all those stuff, that does not work in India. Protests do not work in India. So I think they're wasting money on the wrong guy, Rahul Gandhi.
Rahul Gandhi, Ram Jethmalani's statement I like. He said that this boy is not good enough to be my clerk in my office, and the Congress and the Congress chamcha, they want to make him as a prime minister. The guy who cannot be a clerk in Ram Jethmalani's office, they want to make him a prime minister of India.
He's such a big joker. Such a big joker that he is. And with the entire this Bharat Jodo Yatra, I mean, why don't you go to Pakistan POK and join that? What are you joining here? It makes just no sense. So
somebody very nicely said on the internet, doctor, by walking 3,000 kilometers, अकल तो नहीं आती लेकिन दाढ़ी बढ़ जाती है.
No, it is said that if you install a joker in the palace, he is not going to become king. The palace is going to become circus. So right. we cannot let him enter the high office that he is aiming.
Doctor, today we have Ankita, our new girl. She would like to have one or two questions to you, please. So entertain her and reply her, please. Ankita, it's you.
Jai Shri Krishna, sir. As Nilesh had told you about you, I watched your video. Your talking sessions are very impactful and engaging. I am very happy to be part of this session. Now, moving to our questions. How can businesses and individuals in country prepare for de-dollarization and mitigate any associated risks?
So, a lot to me, as I said, the IT sector is going to be massively impacted because the first de-dollarization brought down the valuations to 78% in the West. The dot-com burst. This is the final one. So many of the IT companies in the West are going to become tiny in valuations, which means they won't be able to hire the outsourcing people sitting in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai, these cities. So one of the way out is all those businesses who are relying on this Western clientele income, they will have to diversify and move towards serving more of the Asian and the Gulf clients. Besides that, the service sector will also be impacted because service sector was also born out of the fiat dollar. So a lot many of unrequired jobs will vanish from the service sector, which means that the next generation should be looking forward to more of an enterprising economy rather than a job-based profile. That's what my advice is. So start young, start doing business experiments, see how you reach a break-even point, no profit, no loss, and take your entrepreneurship forward. Make a team, build a product, try to sell it, and enterprising is the way forward. That's what I see. So the sectors you are going to see going to boom like anything: farming, manufacturing, food logistics, food processing, precious metals, and defense. These are the primary sectors which are going to boom like anything. So you will, if you are working as a a service sector SME, you need to see how you are able to complement the manufacturing sector with your skills. So try to take interdisciplinary skills where you are able to fill in two at least two jobs or job roles kind of a stuff if you're looking for jobs. But my suggestion would be enterprising, because long term that is what will eventually come down to.
My next question is, how does de-dollarization fit into the broader context of changing global economic and geopolitical trends?
Hmm. So once de-dollarization happens, it is going to be but natural that India is going to jump in terms of the top economies of the world. Besides that, you will see a massive amount of geopolitical, maneuvering and flexing of muscles. You will see by the country, and you already see the symptoms when Dr. Jaishankar talks in media in the foreign countries. You see the way he talks. So he's already gained that kind of a
Hmm.
positive attitude of putting the Western media and the leaders to task when he's asked some stupid things. So I believe that a lot of flexing of muscles you will see from India. I also see that the prime minister is going to cede his space of foreign policy work to Dr. Jaishankar, which means a lot many of foreign counterparts will be able to meet the prime minister only if the foreign minister has filtered that person. You cannot have a direct audience with the Indian prime minister even if you are a counterpart. This is where it is heading towards, and it's very logical. If you have nothing to offer, there's no meaning meeting the Indian prime minister and wasting some time of his. So this is how Jai Shankar is being put forward. Of is looking at the macro level where he heads, addresses G20 or addresses the Global South Summit and that kind of stuff. So even that speech you saw, Prime Minister talking about the new Bretton Woods and the UN reforms. So if the UN reforms do not kick in seriously, I see. I mean, 2022 was the only year when the Indian Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin, and Xi Jinping, all three did not attend the United Nations event. This was the first time in the history this has happened. So if the reforms do not kickstart in seriously, I believe all these leaders will also tell other leaders not to attend United Nations event and downgrade the participation to a lower level. So this is where we are heading towards.
How could de-dollarization impact the value of country's currency and its ability to access international capital markets?
Hmm. So what is going to happen, you will see, is the BRICS summit we are going to have in August this year in Africa, where they are working on a new pegged currency formula. They will be discussing it out there, after which you will see the pilot transactions will begin. And then each of the participant nations' currencies will be included in the basket of the BRICS currency. And that is how it will move forward. And once the currency is pegged with real commodities and production, gold, silver, oil, gas, wheat, rice, etc., you will see that the exchange rate will completely flip, which is where my prediction by 2029 is $1 equals to 3 INR. That's where my prediction is in terms of the
You,
exchange rate with the US dollar.
you will have a big party from me if we can buy 3 rupees a dollar. It will be a big party from me to you, doctor. आपके मुंह में जैसे बोलते हैं आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर. Doctor, thank you very much for giving your precious time and your inside knowledge of the world politics and de-dollarization and everything. We are really, really grateful to have you here. Thank you,
Thank you.
doctor.
Thank you.
Uh,
Jai Hind.
जय हिंद, जय हिंद। सनातन शक्ति के सभी दर्शकों को मेरे प्रणाम। आज आपने फायदा उठाया डॉक्टर अंकित शाह का नॉलेज, इनसाइड जो नॉलेज है उसका। हम आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि आप हमारी चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें, लाइक करें, शेयर करें। इट इज फ्री एंड आपको नोटिफिकेशन मिलते रहे डॉक्टर अंकित शाह जैसे नॉलेजेबल लोग आए तो प्लीज सब्सक्राइब करिए चैनल को। धन्यवाद, थैंक यू।